Hey guys, it's Britt. Long time no see, but I feel like the title of this video kind of explains where I've been. So as you guys can see, I was studying and preparing to take my NCLEX, which is why I've been MIA after I uploaded my graduation video. So I'm not going to make this intro too long. We're just going to get right into it. Today I'm going to be telling you guys how I studied for the NCLEX, giving you guys some tips, everything, because the day of my NCLEX, let me tell y'all, I was calm, cool, and collected right up until the last minute where I was walking into the room to take the test. I just felt at peace. I felt very calm. Of course, the nerves were still there a little bit, but I wasn't freaking out how I normally do for other exams and everything like that. So I want all my nurse baes to feel the exact same way when they go to take their test. So I'm gonna tell you guys how I did it. So I thoroughly planned out this video on my phone. I made a list of notes and everything that I wanted to go over with you guys about my NCLEX journey. So let's talk about what happened after I graduated. I graduated with my BSN from IUP on May 8th. It was like the best day of my life. If you guys have been following my YouTube channel and everything like that, you would know nursing school was a journey for me, as it is for everyone, but I struggled, man. Like, failed multiple classes, everything like that. So my graduation day was really special and very, very, very important to me because I just worked so hard to get to that point. So after graduation, I decided to take a couple weeks off before I started preparing for the NCLEX, which I highly recommend because you guys, we study so hard in school and everything like that. So I feel like it's really important to give yourself some time just to wind down a little bit. If you were stressed the whole semester, just not doing as well as you hoped, it's really important just to give yourself a break. Now, with that being said, give yourself a break if you are able to be disciplined and get right back into studying a few weeks later. I know myself, and as you all know yourself better than anyone, so I knew that I was going to be able to hop back in and discipline myself and get right back in the grind and study mode. If you're not like that, I totally recommend that you maybe just like not take as long off, maybe just do 1 to 2 days and hop right back into study, and that's perfectly fine. What works for you works for you. But yeah, so I took a couple weeks off, and then I had a Kaplan prep course that was offered to my school for free because we used Kaplan to help prep us for like clinical and stuff like that. So we had a free 3-day prep course through Kaplan, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take these couple weeks off, and the day of the first day of the Kaplan prep course is when I'm going to start studying. So took my couple weeks off, didn't touch any books, anything like that, didn't study. The only thing that I did do in those couple weeks was start to plan out how I wanted to study, what resources I wanted to use, and just try and get myself super organized. So during those 2 weeks, I was looking up different TikToks, different YouTube videos, Googling different NCLEX prep resources so I can narrow it down. Me personally, I knew right away that I did not want to use a lot of resources. I wanted to use 2 at the max, and that was it. Because to me, it's like if you use a lot of resources, it's very easy to get very confused, and I feel like you're gonna feel very overwhelmed and stressed out by pulling information from here, pulling information from here, pulling information from here, and let that information not all add up and say the exact same thing word for word. You're gonna be confused, I can guarantee it. So I narrowed it down after my little research that I did. I decided to use Mark Klemic and UWorld. If you know, you know. These are 2 highly rated NCLEX prep tools, and let me tell you, they did not fail me. And everyone I talked to, it did not fail them either. So I totally recommend, if you're about to take the NCLEX or you want to start prepping or anything like that, totally look into those resources. So Mark Klemic and UWorld. I owe it to them. So once I found my resources, I began to map out a guideline of how I wanted to study for the NCLEX. I used my planner on my iPad, and I started to write out all the topics that I needed to go over, and I decided that I was gonna spend 2 days for every topic that I needed to go over. Now, 2 days roughly If I felt like I was still shaky or that I still needed to review or I still needed help, obviously I would adjust it according to my study schedule. I would spend a little bit longer time and like kind of push everything back. I just made adjustments in my study schedule as needed. And the 2 days for every topic really worked for me. The only topic I will say that I did not spend 2 days on for sure was fundamentals, because there was so much review for fundamentals. And I would say fundamentals is probably arguably one of the most, not failed, but like tricky topics maybe for the NCLEX, because you learn fundamentals way in the beginning of nursing school, and when you're closer to the end of nursing school, I would say you still implement different parts of fundamentals, but you're more focused on chronic illness, adult health care, more like assessment type of stuff. Like, you're not so much focused on fundamentals, so it's very easy to get it to kind of forget it and everything like that. So that's why I spent about a week on fundamentals. After I decided how many days I wanted to spend on each topic, I began to map out what I wanted each day to look like. Now, a typical study day for me, and this routine just works perfectly for me. I was very lucky. After I mapped everything out and followed it, it just worked. Like, I decided that I was going to give it a week of a test run to see like if my study schedule was working for me, and it did. So I continued out with it way after that week was over. So after I mapped all that out, I decided to plan out what I wanted each study day to look like. So I decided each day I was going to spend 4 hours studying. Now, obviously you can personalize that to however long you want to study for. I chose 4 hours because I have really bad anxiety when I study, and I can't study for long periods of time anymore. I feel like I truly burned myself out within my first 3 years of nursing school, because I was studying like maybe 6 to 8 hours a day, and by the time I got to my senior year, I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't. I was losing focus. I was having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, crying, snot-nosed, all that. I just couldn't do it. So I realized that I needed my study time to be shorter yet productive. So I chose 4 hours, and during those 4 hours, I promised myself I would take breaks when I needed it, go on my phone, eat, sleep, whatever I needed to do. So I decided on my study schedule being 4 hours a day, and that consisted of the Mark Clemick lecture, and then that consisted of 90 practice questions on UWorld. Now, where did I get 90 from? The dean of my nursing department told me that we should be doing 90 practice questions a day. And I will say that helped a lot. At first, when she said that, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, damn. I was like, 90 a day? Like, FML. Like, I don't wanna do that. But she was right. It was very helpful. So, study day, Mark Clemick lecture, practice questions, and then those 90 questions. I didn't do 90 questions in a row. Absolutely not. I would probably shoot myself in the back of the head. I split those 90 questions up. If I wanted to do 10 before I did the Mark Clemick lecture, do the Mark Clemick lecture, then do another 20. I just totaled to 90 a day. And some days when I was feeling really motivated, y'all, would be doing 100, 150 practice questions. That's kind of when my anxiety was a little bit higher, I'm not gonna lie. And I was like, oh, I'm doing really bad today. You know, like I need to pick it up and do some more. So Mark Clemick lectures, practice questions. And while I was doing those practice questions, y'all, I was making sure that I was thoroughly reading the rationale and taking notes. You have to read the rationales. It will really help you. Those rationales on UWorld is your key to passing, because if you understand the rationales, you can implement it on so many different questions. There are ways, I'm telling you guys, there are ways to take the NCLEX and not even know what they're talking about. Because when I first started doing practice questions, within the first week, I was getting so frustrated because I had never even heard of some of these procedures in nursing school. I had never heard of the disease process. I was like, we didn't talk about this shit in school. But as I went on and did the lectures and read the rationales to the practice questions, I didn't even know what the surgery that they said that the patient was post-op from was, but I was getting the questions right. You have to read the rationales and you have to be able to understand it. There are certain things you should be asking yourself when you're taking these practice questions. When you're doing practice questions, you need to be asking yourself, did I just answer this because I guessed or because I truly know it? Because don't get me wrong, Some of those times I was very close to cheating myself, and because I didn't feel like reading any more rationales for the day, and I was trying to tell myself, girl, you know this, but I really had just guessed on the question. Do not cheat yourself, y'all. If you don't know it, go back, do some more research, read more into it. I'm telling you, it will help you. Don't cheat yourself when reading the rationales. Some of them are very, very lengthy, but I'm telling you, it's going to help you. I can guarantee you that's probably the only reason I passed. That's probably the only reason I passed the NCLEX, honestly, was because I was able to remember some of the explanations of those rationales when it came to certain topics and implement them when I was answering the question. So that is basically what my study days looked like, the Mark Clemic lectures, and doing a bunch of practice questions on UWorld and reading the rationales very thoroughly and everything. If you guys haven't watched my study video that I previously uploaded on my channel, you should go check it out, because I explain how I rewrite my notes over and over and over again, and it really, really, truly helps me. Some people don't like to rewrite their notes, but I feel like it works for me. So while I was reading the rationales, I would be rewriting the notes and just making sure they're nice and organized, and then I would be reviewing them a little bit every day. So getting more in depth to my study schedule, when I would get a couple weeks into studying, I would do the Mark Clemic lectures. I would do practice questions on UWorld that was in relation to that topic. So if I had just watched a Mark Clemic lecture on maternity and OB, I would do the maternity and OB practice questions on UWorld. I would probably do about 50 of those for the day. And then to get my 90 questions in, if I had already reviewed fundamentals and cardiac 2 days prior to, the other 40 practice questions that I would do to make the 90 for the day, I would make sure it focused on fundamentals and cardiac, just so I was still like keeping refreshed on stuff that I had already previously reviewed, if that makes sense. So I had this whole timeline planned out, and I actually wanted to take the NCLEX the end of June, but I wasn't able to because I had accommodations during the NCLEX. I tested by myself because my anxiety gets really bad, and I don't like to test around other people because the smallest things really distract me, and it's not good, needless to say. So I had accommodations, and when you get accommodations for the NCLEX, it takes a little bit longer for the information and everything to come through. And I actually didn't fill the information out correctly. They had found like a discrepancy on the application. So it took a little bit longer for me to, actually take the NCLEX. I wanted to take it the end of June, but I actually took it the end of July. So I had a lot more time to study. I was originally just going to give myself exactly 1 month to study. But obviously that didn't happen. A lot of people take different amounts of time to study for the NCLEX, so it really just depends on how much time you want to take. The dean of my nursing department suggested a month because she didn't want us to start to forget the information. She wanted us to do it while it's fresh in your head, and that's pretty much what everyone recommends. They're like, take the NCLEX as soon as you can, because a lot of the information you already know. I've heard of some people taking 2 weeks to study for it. I've heard some people taking 3 days. I've heard some people taking 1 week. I decided to give myself a month because I felt like there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to review. And I will say the month really did work for me. I felt so much more competent in nursing than I have felt in a while, y'all. I really disciplined myself, and I really studied hard. I really read those rationales, like I said, and I was like, wow, I'm learning so much. In that month of studying, I learned so much. So I definitely recommend you just take whatever amount of time that you need for you. But I feel like a lot of the information you do already know, so don't take too long. I did not want to take my test in July when I started studying for it at the end of May. I felt like it was too long, and I started to get very antsy and everything like that. And yeah, so just get in there and really try and take it, and just really try and figure out a good study plan so you can have a good estimate of a timeline and everything like that. One thing I do recommend you also doing is taking a practice test. That was one of the things that I did in the first couple days of me studying. I took a practice test just to see where I fell, and this is truly an NCLEX success story, y'all. When I took my NCLEX practice test on UWorld, I got borderline at passing, which I wasn't too upset about because I was like, at least it doesn't say I have a low chance of passing. I was borderline. I got a 53%. I'll never forget that. Up until the test, y'all, on some practice tests, I was still scoring in the 30%, the 20% on my really bad days. I was getting like 80s and 90s on the fundamental stuff, but on like the adult health and sometimes like the pediatrics, I'm not gonna lie, I was getting in like the 30s and 20s. But do not let that deter you. U-World questions, they say, are harder than the actual NCLEX questions. I will say on the NCLEX, the questions were very, very, very straightforward. They were a lot more straightforward than U-World. And the questions are actually almost identical in a sense. So that's why I think a lot of people definitely recommend you use U-World, because honestly, when I was taking the NCLEX, I was like, damn, I just took this on a U-World quiz. Like, obviously not the same exact thing, but the wording is very similar. Like, it's just insane. Now, because I did have more time to study, because I was waiting for my permission to test to come back, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I was going through it because I just wanted to take the test and get it done. I was so sick of studying. After that time frame of the month passed that I did want to spend on studying, I was getting very antsy. I couldn't concentrate as much anymore. Like, I was just running out of steam and motivation, honestly. So I ended up taking 2 weeks off from studying. And I was like, I can't do it anymore. And I was talking to some of my friends who are already nurses in their career. They were like, girl, honestly, don't start studying again until you have a date for that test. And that was probably that was probably the best advice I had ever gotten. I was having mental breakdowns. I was over it, y'all. So I'm telling you this to say, give yourself some grace, give yourself a break if you need it. If you see that you're not retaining the information as much anymore, if you're burnt out, any of that, give yourself a break. It's okay. And I'm the kind of person, when I used to take breaks in school from studying, it would make my anxiety go up and everything like that. But it doesn't help. It doesn't help if you're trying to study and you're not retaining it. It doesn't help when you're trying to study and your mind is in a completely different place. So it is okay to take breaks. My study schedule pretty much went like, I would study for 6 days in a row, and on the 7th day, I would have off. I wouldn't do anything because it's a burnout. Like, you do dedicate a large portion of your time and your life to studying for the NCLEX. So it's okay to take breaks. Now let's talk about the week of the test. The week of the actual test itself, my study habits changed a little bit. I was doing a lot better on U-World, getting better scores and everything, obviously feeling more confident and whatnot. So my study habits changed. I lessened my time to about an hour and a half a day of studying, just to review any other topics that I didn't feel most comfortable on. I reviewed a lot of diabetes because that's something I've always struggled on. I reviewed a lot of cardiac, chest tubes, all of that stuff. And I was studying about an hour and a half a day and still doing practice questions, but less practice questions. I was probably doing about 30 practice questions a day because I felt a lot more confident and I didn't want to burn myself out the week of the test. The day before the test, I didn't study anything. The dean of my nursing department, she was like, don't study anything the day before the test. She was like, go to the spa, do something, relax. And I wanted to study, but I was like, I'm actually gonna listen for once. And that was probably the best thing that I did do. And it was nice just to relax, and I felt confident in myself. I slept like a baby the night before the test and everything. So moving forward to the day of the test, still calm, cool, collected as I was going to my testing location. I felt good. I was like, Britt, you studied as much as you can, and that's how you know you're ready for the test. When you start to get in your head, all right, I studied as much as I possibly could for this test, I'm ready to take it. When you can admit that to yourself, that's how you know you're ready to take the test. And I had felt that way since the middle of June. I was like, you know what? I feel like there's nothing else I can do. There's nothing else I can study, which is why I became so anxious to take the test. So I went in there and I went in my little room to go test, and that's when it all went downhill. So I began taking the test, and the first couple questions, I'm like, okay, pretty straightforward. It was a lot of prioritization and delegation, which you guys should definitely focus on. Mark Clemick has a great lecture for that. I had a lot of questions on that, and then that was me kind of getting in my head. I got a question that was hard as hell, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck they're asking me in this question. And so I felt myself starting to get kind of anxious, and I started getting kind of antsy and like moving around, but I tried to talk to myself and remain confident. I'm like, yo, you got this. Just sit there, think, and read the question. You have so much time and everything like that. The way to know that you're doing good on the NCLEX apparently is when you start to get to the harder questions, because obviously you master the easier questions, so they're going to give you harder ones to see what you know. And like, but my test was just jumping all around. It would go from like easy, 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 hard, hard, easy, 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 hard, hard, easy, 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 easy. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this test is all over the place. So they're probably like, all I'm thinking is, oh, I'm borderline. I'm borderline. Like, I'm right there, but I'm not. And I'm right there again, but I'm not. I finally got to my last question, which was question number 93. I went to 93 questions, and I was like, 93, and then the test stopped. And then I was like, yeah, you failed. So I left the testing center. I went in my car and I freaking cried, because I was like, girl, you got 93 questions. You don't feel confident. All the questions were easy. I was like, fail. I just went home and I was a mess for the rest of the day. I felt really depressed. I felt like I just wanted to go to sleep, not talk to anyone. But then I started thinking to myself, I was like, Brittany, there's no way you fail that test with how hard you studied and how hard you worked, because y'all, I grinded for this test. I disciplined myself so hard with studying everything. I was like, girl, there's no way you failed. So I was like, I have to find out if I passed. I went on TikTok and I found out about the Pearson VUE trick. And for those of you that don't know, the Pearson VUE trick is basically you try and go and schedule the test again and pay for it, but you put in the wrong, I think, expiration date. And there's a good pop-up and a bad pop-up. The good pop-up is, it says something like, oh, you've already scheduled to take this exam. And the bad pop-up is incorrect card information. So obviously, the bad pop-up means like they were going to let you schedule to take it again because you failed, but your card information was correct, so it couldn't obviously go through. And then the good pop-up is, oh, like you already took it again and you passed, so why would you need to take it again? So I did that trick and I got the good pop-up, but I still wasn't settled. I was like, I need to see the pass. I need to see the pass. I said, I'm not going to believe it until I pass. My boyfriend was like, you got the good pop-up. Like, shut up. You're good. And I was like, you don't understand. Like, I have to see it in like actual writing, PASS. So I kind of just left it alone for a couple days. And then I checked again that Monday and pass. So let's knock one of the myths about the NCLEX, which is this whole thing about the number of questions that you get. First thing is, you get 75 questions, it's an automatic pass. That's not true. I actually saw on TikTok a couple people that have gotten 75 questions and actually failed. So I wouldn't believe the whole questions thing. And I will say that was one thing that got in my head, which was one of the reasons why I thought that I had failed so bad, because I had never watched any YouTube videos, seen any TikToks or anything of people getting 93 questions. And that was in my head the entire time when I was thinking, oh my God, I failed. I was like, 93 questions. I've never heard of anybody getting 93 questions and passing the NCLEX, you know? So get the whole thing out your head about the amount of questions you get, okay? you could get all of the questions and still pass. I've heard of that. I heard someone passing in 84 questions. Me, I passed in 93 questions, and I've heard people passing in 75 questions. So let's knock the myth about the whole 75 questions automatic pass. If you don't get this number, it's not a pass, this and that, because it's not true. Okay, so let's talk about what was actually on my NCLEX. I will say I did have a lot of prioritization and delegation, like which person would you see first, which person would you put in a private room, like, you know, like roommate assignments, all of that stuff. I had a lot of that, and that was, I feel like prioritization and delegation is inevitable. Like, people told me if you study anything, study that, like that's important. So I did have a lot of that on my NCLEX. Me, I feel like they knew I want to do peds because I had a lot of pediatric questions and I had a lot of postpartum teaching questions, and I was like, how the heck did y'all know I wanted to go into pediatrics and everything? I had a lot of peds questions. I also had quite a few psych questions too, which is also insane because psych was like my second choice. If I didn't do peds, I wanted to do psych nursing. So I found that kind of interesting because I never really heard of other people who I talked to getting maternity, peds, and psych questions. They actually said they didn't have any of that on their NCLEX and that I really shouldn't focus on it. And I think I kind of just got lucky because I'm not gonna lie, I really didn't focus as much as I could have on pediatrics. Like, I didn't go as in depth as I could have. I just did like surface level stuff. And same thing for maternity, because people were telling me, you know, like, it's very unlikely that your NCLEX is gonna have a whole bunch of questions on that, but mine did. Luckily, I just kind of obviously knew my stuff and I was able to make it work. So every NCLEX is very different, so you really can't listen to what other people say. The only thing you can listen about is the Pearson VUE trick, because obviously it works. But as far as like what to study and everything like that, besides definitely studying prioritization and delegation, you can't really listen to other people on the other topics, because my other friend that just took the NCLEX, she had a ton of questions on pharmacology. Apparently I had no questions on pharmacology. I studied my ass off on diabetes because diabetes was a topic that I always kind of got confused. I had no questions on diabetes. What else did I have? I didn't have any EKG strips. So yeah, it's kind of just luck of the draw. So I would say don't really listen to other people. Like, that's kind of where you're gonna get messed up. And that could have went very badly for me because I was listening to other people saying that they didn't have any maternity OB peds questions, and luckily I still went over it enough that I was able to make it work. But if I would have just completely chalked it out the door, like I had so many on there, I could have easily failed that test. Alright guys, so I hope this video was somewhat helpful for you guys. Feel free to reach out to me on any of my social medias or down below in the comments if you want any extra tips or anything like that. One more thing I know is that Mark Clinic lectures are getting taken down on YouTube. I do have a link of this document that some girl made, and it summarizes all of the lectures in the document, and I was using that religiously when I was studying for my exam. So I'm actually going to link that down below for you guys. Hopefully it doesn't get taken down, but the actual videos themselves are getting taken down due to copyright. So if you guys do happen to find them, I suggest you record them or download them onto your computer because they are so helpful. It is such a shame that they're getting taken down, but I will be linking that down below. Another thing I do want to say is, guys, don't lose confidence if you don't pass the first time. Regroup, take a break, and come back to it. You will pass. You will. And this is coming from someone who has failed so many nursing classes. I can't even begin to tell you. I think during nursing school I failed about 5 classes. I graduated a year after I was supposed to. So don't lose confidence. You will get there. I'm just sharing my experience and how I studied. I'm really hoping to help any of you out because I want you guys to go into that test how I felt: calm, cool, and collected. Yes, a little bit nervous, but I felt ready enough, and I felt like I had done everything I possibly could do in my power to study. So like I said, if you guys need help or anything like that, please reach out to me. I believe in you. So many people in your corner believe in you, so you guys can do this. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. I can't wait to give you guys more nursing content, and stay tuned for all my vacation content coming up in the next couple weeks. I'm going to Jamaica, and those videos are always a hit on my channel. Y'all love my travel vlogs and everything like that. So stay tuned, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.